Welcome in, Braves Today, bravestoday.com. He's Lindsay Crosby. I'm Ben Taylor, and it's all brought to you by none other than our plainscoffee.com. Enter the promo code BRAVES, 10% off. Get your, I say flavored coffee. Some of it's regular. You got tea, too, but whatever. Might as well go and get it today.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff either way.
It is. It is. Lindsay, I got to ask you, there's all kinds of things going around. We talked about it last pod. Marcell Ozuna is possibly a 300 hitter, but what is his actual role as far as this team is concerned? Because if he starts out sub 100 like he did last year, do they go, all right, we've done enough? How does it roll here?
Here's the thing about Marcell Ozuna is, one, he's got a little bit more runway to fix a problem because he showed last year, if you stick with him and you give him the chance to play his way out of it, he'll play his way out of it. It was a really good year last year. Like despite starting off 081, he still had 40 home runs and 100 RBIs. Like it was a good year. So I think, one, he's bought himself a little bit of grace when it comes to the coaching staff, right? Like they believe that he's still hitting the ball hard. If he's struggling early, it'll correct itself. But then, two, with the changes that you've made to the roster this year, you don't really have another option for everyday pinch hit at bats, right? Mm-hmm. Look at early in the year when Marcell Ozuna was playing left field, and your DH was usually whatever catcher wasn't playing that day. And you could do that. Like, that very well could be what you did. But Marcell Ozuna showed that if you give him enough trust, he'll play his way out of it. And it's different now because you don't have another quasi-starting caliber bench player like a Kevin Pillar or Eddie Rosario. Instead, your bench looks like it's going to be Forrest Wall, Luis Guillorme, guys like that. And so I feel like his role is, I'm going to DH every day. And then I wrote this up at bravestoday.com, I think actually today on Wednesday.
Yeah.
If something happens to Matt Olson in like a 7th inning, Marcell Ozuna may very well be the guy that comes in the game to finish out that game. He's been taking infield drills throughout the year last year. He played first base for the squad games. They are letting him do defensive drills at first base behind Matt Olson in spring. And Brian Snitker said he's going to get a chance to play first base in Grapefruit League action. And so the way that Atlanta's kind of configuring the bench, right? They've talked about speed's going to be a big factor in who the backup outfielder is, because we're going to play the three guys, Harris, Acuna, and Kelenic. We're going to play them every day. And so if you have versatility, like you can stick Ozuna in at first base for an inning or two, things like that, you can better populate the bench with role guys who just have great speed, who could be a pinch runner and steal some bases like a Forrest Wall or an Eli White, who is on paper faster than Forrest Wall. I think Ozuna's role is, I'm going to DH every day. I'm an option if you need me in left field. I'm an option if you need me at first base. But my job is to just go out and mash. And he had one of his better offensive years last year, batting .274 with 40 bombs.
So let me ask you this. What if, and pardon my voice because apparently it's gone, by the way. What if there's two scenarios. Ozuna could go out and he could be an all-star.
Mm-hmm.
Or Ozuna could go out and he could be the guy he was last year. What do the Braves do, number one, if he is a 275 plus hitter? What do the Braves do if he is a .089 hitter that he was last year?
So, like, he batted .274 last year. If he bats .275 this year, he's the everyday DH. You're not taking him out of the game at any given time. But in 22, over 124 games, he batted .226 with 23 homers. And I think that's probably the worst case scenario for Atlanta, is he's not performing, but he's also not injured and going on the injured list. He's just not being very good because you don't really have a lot of great options to take DH at bats other than whoever is your backup catcher that day, right? Some of your slugging prospects, David McCabe, he had Tommy John surgery. He's probably out for most of the season. That's typically 160 to 200 days to come back, and he had it in February, so he's probably out. You don't have a lot of high minors depth, and so you're looking at a scenario where maybe you stick a guy like Luis Guillorme on the field and you rotate regulars through your DH spot. But either way, like Marcell Ozuna is going to play unless he physically can't, because you just don't have any other options. That's the thing with this roster is your starters are great, right? But your depth, there's just not a lot of depth. And Alex Anthopoulos said, we tried to sign some guys. We tried to get some guys to come to Atlanta, and there's no playing time to give to anybody. And there's some, and he didn't name names. He never does. But there's some players who wanted to come to Atlanta that just didn't come because there was no playing time to be projected for them this season, and they're trying to get to the point of getting a new contract. So you need a Marcell Ozuna to hit because he's going to be in the lineup either way until he's just so bad you can't play him. And we saw from last year, it's going to take a lot for them to think he's so bad they can't play him.
We'll get to pitching in a little bit. I need to thank Plains Coffee, plainscoffee.com. Use promo code BRAVES. Get 10% off of what you are looking for. Straight to your doorstep. Don't roast the beans until you have made that order. Every order is roasted and shipped that same day. Ship freshly roasted coffee to consumers and customers around the world. Experience the goodness and freshly roasted coffee beans delivered to your doorstep. Go to plainscoffee.com. Enter promo code BRAVES for 10% off. All right, Lindsay, the other one is that people forget who is Ynoa, because apparently he's a pitcher we have on staff that nobody knew about because of injury last year. And all of a sudden everybody's like, we actually have an extra arm in the bullpen.
Yeah, everybody sees that this fifth starter job is really just like, they assume it's Bryce Elder versus Renato Lopez, but like Huáscar Ynoa is fully healthy. He had his Tommy John surgery in September 2022, and so like he's getting close to that end of the 12 to 18 months. He should be fine, and he has been pretty successful at for stretches in the regular season. Back in 2021. At one point in time before he got mad and punched a bullpen bench or punched a bench in Milwaukee, he was 4-1 with a 2.23 ERA. He was pretty good. When he came back, he wasn't the same pitcher, didn't make the postseason roster, got hurt in 22, had the Tommy John. The thing with Huáscar Ynoa that it's always kind of bothered me is he's really a two-pitch pitcher. He has a fastball and he has a slider. And yes, Spencer Strider is the same kind of guy. A fastball and a slider. Upper 90s fastball. Slider in the mid 80s. A changeup he uses like 6% of the time. But the difference in Spencer Strider and Huáscar Ynoa is Spencer Strider's fastball and slider both are among the best pitches in all of baseball. And Huáscar Ynoa's aren't quite there. And so he's talked about working to improve his slider, get it back to where it was before surgery. He's talked about improving the changeup, but I don't know if he's going to be at the point of being able to win the third starter's job, right? Like that's the concern for me.
But what if he's fifth starter? What if he's
I'm sorry, fifth starter.
Yeah, what and as far as Elder, I mean, what if he's better than Elder?
I mean, I'm confident this team's going to put the best guy out there at number 5. The good thing is Elder has minor league options. Ynoa has minor league options. And I said this on Locked On Braves, I think tomorrow, actually. I think that Renato Lopez being stretched out in spring, but being in the bullpen is probably the best outcome for Atlanta because he gives you a second guy along with Jackson Stevens who can take bulk innings, who can throw more than an inning at a time. And he gives you the ability to kind of have a 6th starter.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether Huascar Ynoa is your 5th starter out of spring training or not, either way, you're going to see him this year, right? We used 16 different starting pitchers last year, 13 starters and 3 relievers as openers. You're going to see him next year either way. But if he can either improve his first 2 pitches or get a 3rd pitch that's better than that changeup was, it gives you just even more depth to get through the regular season. And when he's at his best, again, I think it was in 21, he was 4-1 with an ERA of under 2.25. He's good enough where you could conceivably start him like in a postseason series and not be making a bad decision. So, do I expect him to win a job out of spring training? No, I don't. But do I think if you needed him to do that, would it work out? I think it would, at least for a while, until that lack of a 3rd pitch came back to bite him.
So let me ask you this. We go from Ynoa to Bryce Elder, who went from an all-star to he kind of tapered back a little bit towards the end of the year, but let's not discount what he did at the first part of the year.
A little
Let's not discount what he did at the first part of the year. Yeah. All right. So the thing is, he went from an all-star to, let's quote unquote, not an all-star. So is that 5th starter job his to lose, or is it somebody like a Ynoa or even one of the young guys to jump up and go, all right, I'm the guy?
So Alex Anthopoulos was pretty blatant or overt earlier in the year when he said, like, Bryce Elder is not locked into the 5th starter's job, right? Like, it is going to be an open competition. And the big question we have to figure out in Grapefruit League action is which version of Bryce Elder is closer to who he is. The guy who had a 2.97 ERA through the end of May, or I'm sorry, first half, the guy who had a 1.92 ERA through the end of May, or the guy who had a 5.11 after the All-Star break. And where he comes in, does he come in closer to 2, closer to 3, or closer to 5, I think determines is he the 5th starter or not. But here's the other thing to remember is after spring last year, you thought Jared Schuster and Dylan Dodd were both going to be dudes. And they combined to not do a whole heck of a lot at the major league level before both getting sent down for the rest of the year. So I don't know how much we're going to actually learn from Grapefruit League action, simply because the competition's not there. It's not the same competitive type of environment. It's not the same adrenaline and all of that going on. But either way, you're going to see Bryce Elder a lot this year. You're going to see Ronaldo Lopez a lot this year. You're going to see AJ Smith-Shawver and Hurston Waldrop, in my opinion. You're going to see them both a lot this year. You're going to see Huascar Ynoa. Because again, you used 16 pitchers last year, 16 starting pitchers last year. And so even the average team who doesn't have injury concerns still needs 12 guys to get through a year. Kyle Wright and Max Fried in 2022 combined for 365 innings. And you lost both of them out of your rotation. And you, in essence, you got like 100 innings combined from both of those guys. So, like, it feels like either way, you're going to see all of these guys. The question is going to be who gets the first crack at the 5th starter's job, and does that guy do well enough to stay up all year, or do you swap him out with somebody else?
So let me ask you this. How blessed are the Atlanta Braves that you and I are discussing the 5th position start or the 5th starter on the rotation instead of going, okay, who do we start day 1 or who do we start day 2 or who do we start day 3? I mean, how good of a, I guess, position are the Braves in the fact that we're upset that we haven't come up with a 5th day starter
It's a good place to be.
Instead of an opening day starter.
It's a good place to be. I mean, there's teams out there, you don't know who's going to be, like Tampa Bay right now. Who's going to be your starting shortstop on opening day? Is it going to be Ceballos? Is it going to be Ahmed Rosario, who you signed like yesterday? I mean, there's much bigger questions out there in camp than what Atlanta's dealing with. But either way, I mean, the depth of this team is evident, right? The depth in the major league level at position players, the depth in your overall system and starting pitching, that's all evident. The question I have is, where is your depth going to be tested the most? And what I'm worried about is it's going to end up being a position player that you lose for a while, and you've got to replace them in the lineup, and you don't have as many options as you do pitching. Like, Atlanta starters are all some of the best at their position in the entire league, right? But the backups, because of that thing earlier of no playing time to be projected, there's not a lot of high ceiling or even high floor backups in the system to take their place if they miss significant time. And so really, as much as you hate to say this, if there's going to be an injury, you want it to be in the pitching staff simply because you have other options there. But like if you lose Michael Harris for 3 months, I guess Jared Kelenic plays center, and then who plays left field? JP Martinez? Eli White? It's not a lot of appealing options.
Marcell
Ozuna playing left field compared to if you lose Bryce Elder, okay, we'll stick Ronaldo Lopez in there. We'll stick Darius Vines in there, Alice Wine, AJ Smith-Shawver. We have plenty of options, right? And I think that's my big concern with this year is where's the depth if the worst case scenario happens for some of these guys.
And, you know, when it comes to depth and it comes to the battery, especially if you lose d'Arnaud or Murphy, I mean, you're looking at Drake Baldwin, which we will have to get to at a later time.
I'm sorry, buddy. We're trying, man.
I apologize, man. We're missing out this time around. We're running late. Visit plainscoffee.com, promo code BRAVES. Get your 10% off today. Otherwise, Drake Baldwin, I apologize. We will see you at some other time. He's Lindsay Crosby. I'm Ben Taylor. You can catch Lindsay's work all at bravestoday.com. Also, he is filling in for
Jake Mastriani on Locked On Braves.
Locked On Braves. And Lindsay's got a ton of stuff. He can talk about a lot of your upcoming guys as well. So be sure to go over there as well. Lindsay, as always, I greatly appreciate your time, sir.
Thanks, buddy.